I mean, one of the values of buying a business is we already had all these relationships set up with a lot of the ITOs or inbound organizations. And so one of the scarier things was that one of them was giving us about sort of 50% of our business almost in some years. And so that terrified me because all your eggs in one basket can sort of, go belly up sometimes. So I definitely made a big effort to spend the money to go to the trade shows. So ATE, or Australian Tourism Exchange in Australia, is the biggest one we have here. And so my main goal there was to meet more of these ITOs and get them to know who I am, and then get into their systems. And then once that happened over the years, then I've started to be able to meet the agents that use those ITOs, and it just makes business so much easier when they know that you're already with ITO A or ITO B, and they're like, sweet, they've already got your details, no worries, product sounds great, I already know who I'm going to sell this to. So I guess you've got to really understand the structure of who you should be speaking to, because it's sort of pointless in a way to be talking to some of the agents if they only use one of the ITOs, if that ITO doesn't have your product.
Good morning, Tourpreneur community. Well, it's morning from me, and from Jason Heffernan, it is not morning. He is from down in sunny Australia, so it's late in the day from him. Jason is from Backcountry Bliss. Jason, could you give the Tourpreneur community listeners a brief on yourself and what your company does?
Thanks, Peter. So my name's Jason. I run a small tour company up in Port Douglas. We're in sort of the north of Queensland. We do small group tours in a rainforest river, something a little bit different. We sort of float and snorkel through the river instead of just walking through it. We also do a lot of private sort of custom chartered tours as well, and hiking tours if we've got the guests.
How did you get into this business, Jason, and when did you get into it?
So I became a tour guide about 2010. First started out in Central Australia doing sort of outback desert tours with backpackers. Did that for about 6 years off and on between all over Australia, doing like 7-day tours. Learned a lot about guiding tours, and then started guiding up here in sort of Cairns, Port Douglas area, and just thought the natural progression would be to run a tour company because it seemed like I knew what I was doing, and sort of learned a lot of challenges along the way that is a little bit different than just guiding a tour. But yeah, I've been guiding and in the tourism sort of industry for almost 13 years now.
So you mentioned 7-day tours, backpackers crossing the desert, etc. That's multi-day tours. Is your company multi-day at the moment?
No, so we only do sort of half-day tours or full-day tours. So we don't do any multi-day tours up here at all.
And although you started in 2010 as a guide, I'm always interested in why people come into this industry, because it's weird and bizarre why people drop into this industry. Where did you come from prior to being a guide, and why did you drop into this industry?
So I guess I was kind of in tourism before. I was living in London, doing what most Aussies do and doing their sort of 2-year stint in London. Ended up working at London Aquarium because I love fish, I love aquatic life, and started working in the education department there, doing talks in front of all the different tanks. And then my visa ran out, ended up back home in Australia, and I was just kind of just searching for something to do, and randomly found a tour right in the middle of Australia in a very, very little town, and just thought, why not? And it was a little bit different to living in London, going to Alice Springs, population like 30,000 people. So but never looked back.
So that's different. London, and you were working at, most Aussies I meet in London live in bars, where you were at an aquarium. So
I lived in bars for a little bit, but I had to work to afford living in the bars.
It can be the Aussie way when they're in London for the 2 years. They're either working in bars, or living in bars, or both.
Yeah.
So what date did you actually start your own operation, your half-day and full-day operation? What date was that?
So that was 2016. So I actually bought a business that was for sale. That was kind of, I wasn't really looking to buy a business, but I just saw it, a business for sale, and then kind of just thought maybe I should be a bit more of an adult and try to run a business instead of guiding them a lot. And so 2016. So it's been about a bit over 6.5 years. Or about 6.5 years now.
This is interesting. Most of our community, and I've checked this, start businesses. It's only a minority that buy businesses to start with. Now, you're in that minority and I'm in that minority because I've done both startups and purchases, several of them. And I'm a big fan of buying rather than doing the startups, having done both. I would class startups as much, much harder than buying a business. And I've got a whole other podcast we could do on how you buy business. I've actually done some in the past on how you buy businesses, how you sell businesses. So what made you buy rather than start?
I think definitely the tour that was for sale in the river. So it was a bit of a mixture between my passion, which was fish, and guiding sort of combined. So it was just a really random occurrence that we sort of stumbled upon it. And I guess I probably before then was always thinking that I would start a tour business, but this kind of was just a bit of a way in with something that was already set up. And I definitely now learning what I've learned, I would definitely buy another business if it was the right business, rather than starting something from scratch.
So when I'm in the past been looking at buying businesses, I class them as three styles of business. You find really good businesses, you find okay businesses, and you find pretty rubbish businesses. Now, I've always been a bottom feeder because I'm Scottish and I'm tight, and I've bought businesses that are pretty rubbish from a business perspective.
Yeah.
Often we have a decent brand, some market penetration, lots of customer stuff like that. But from a business perspective, I look for kind of broken businesses because I'm fairly confident I can fix broken businesses. Mm-hmm. Where would you class the business you bought on that scale? Was it a really good business? Was it a okay business? Or was it a rubbish business?
I think it was a really good business that the owners were running more as a lifestyle business. And so they weren't really, they'd had it for a while. And I think that they pushed it, and then they realized they could just run it as a lifestyle business and shut it down for a couple of weeks and go overseas and then come back. And they were just enjoying doing that. And so I guess I would say it was a really good business that wasn't being pushed at the time that they sold it to what it could be, just purely because they were just quite content running it like they were.
Nothing wrong with being quite content in life. And
honestly, I really appreciate what they were doing. And now I'm just like, man, that was such a good idea. How much spare time they must have had. And very, very lucky. Honestly, it was an absolute like gold find to find such an amazing couple as well. These outdoor education teachers that were running this sort of fantastic business, and we're just looking for someone to sort of take it to the next level. And so it was just fantastic people to meet, and we still keep in contact today.
So since you took it over, what was that, 2016 you said?
Yeah, 2016, yeah.
2016, so you've had 5-6 years, albeit a few of them quite strange years, as we've all had in the last couple. Yeah, it always is in business. It's never a smooth line. It's always up and down. So what's been the main wins? What's went really well since you took the business over? And what really, really made business better?
I mean, I hate to say it, but COVID's been fantastic for us in the long run. Last year was our biggest year ever. A lot of that's to do with the domestic market. Australians are just such insane travelers, and all of a sudden we were trapped in Australia, and the domestic tourism was just booming as long as our state borders allowed us to move around. But that's been a big thing because of the domestic market. We were already in it. But I think the biggest thing is the product that I bought originally, the River Drift Snorkeling Tour, was just, I think it was just waiting to be found. And so it was a lot of work sort of trying to get the name out there, just sort of yelling at the top of a hill, trying to tell everybody that this tour exists. And that really did take a few years with social media and sort of media for mills and just jumping at every possible opportunity I could get. And really, probably beginning of last year, I think I kind of noticed that we'd sort of hit critical mass and started to just sort of reap the benefits of all of that work.
So, I mean, the last couple of years have been desperate for tourism in the whole globally, but there's been pockets of success, like you said, Australia, your domestic market can go anywhere. Other destinations experienced that as well. We experienced that in UK, not this year, but 2021 can go anywhere. So the UK boomed. Domestic creator had 65 million people to play with because they couldn't go anywhere. So they had boom season, but it was open and shut, open and shut, open and shut. So it was boom, drought, boom, drought.
We had a similar thing.
Yeah, previous year, Florida, the US, lots of the US shut. Florida didn't really shut at all, and maybe for a couple of days here and there, but on the whole, Florida was open. So a mass of US travellers headed for Florida. So the operators really, really boomed in Florida. I mean, some of them doubled and trebled the business. And I've been back to Florida this year, speaking to some of them. I spoke to them at the time. A lot of them took that as the world's changed and this is what it's going to be like going forward. Yeah. And they reinvested for the following year at coping with the same levels. And obviously when the world opened up, travel then spread back to a lot of places it were. So people have had boom years that are now back to, I wouldn't say normal because I don't believe we're anywhere near normal at the moment, but they certainly had a peak that they're probably not going to have again. Mm-hmm. So how are you coping with probably life starting to return to normal as the Australians start to do international travel again? I know it's not absolutely booming with international travel coming out of Australia yet, but I am seeing a lot more Aussies around the world when I'm travelling than I did last year when I've seen virtually none. Or the ones I did meet were the ones that couldn't get by because you wouldn't let them come home.
Yeah. Look, honestly, one of the biggest things is I didn't lose those connections I had to all those other channels. So it seemed like a lot of people, not like that, especially up here, some people got a little comfortable with the amount of domestic business we had, and they just thought it was going to last forever, and therefore we don't have to work with the ITO, like the inbound tourism organizations or other sort of third parties. But nothing lasts forever, and it was just, I've definitely maintained all those connections, and now they're all starting to boom while domestic's sort of dropping a little bit. And so you can just see the value in maintaining those relationships where possible. So yeah, I think just nothing lasts forever, really. You just got to always remember that.
In travel, it lasts for about a week. At my recent experience last year, everyone changes every couple of weeks. So you mentioned different channels there and different routes to market. So can you tell our listeners your split between B2C and B2B?
Yeah, I mean, it's still a bit weird right now. We still probably get about, and it has dropped a bit. I think it would still be 80% direct at the moment. And that 20%, yeah, that B2B is definitely growing, especially for next year with our sort of higher end market, especially US. It just seems to have just turned on all of a sudden. And yeah, so I think there's, at the moment, we have more Australians leaving than internationals arriving. So that deficit is hopefully going to get filled by more international travelers coming back. And so I can definitely see that. I can definitely start to see all those channels and cogs turning back on again.
What would be your
direct business? But yeah,
sure. If it was a normal year, whatever normal is, what would be your optimum mix in your business? How much do you look for B2B versus B2C?
I think before, I guess a normal year before COVID would have been maybe 50-50 almost. I think we have such a strong domestic market up here anyway, especially school holidays, that we did get a huge amount of business that way. But we had really good relationships with all the local hotels. They just keep ringing us all the time. So yeah, it was about 50-50. Probably when I got it to where I really wanted it, it was about half-half. But then it's sort of swayed the other way right now, which is good for the lack of commissions. But
it's also nothing lasts and it's hard in other ways. So if we could just dig into B2B channels, the reason I'm kind of concentrating on B2B here, it's just certainly in this hemisphere, we've just got to the end of the travel show season. So from about September through to now, there's show after show after show in the US and Europe and various places. So a lot of operators have been out building their B2B relationships or rebuilding the B2B relationships that have never been broken for the last couple of years. But we have a lot of listeners in the group that are B2C or the B2B basically consists of a couple of OTAs, stuff they can do online, whereas they haven't gone out and done the face-to-face stuff, meeting different companies, meeting different channels that they can enhance their business. So if we could just spend a little bit on your B2B spread and just talk a little bit about the sort of different partners you work with and where they come from.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, one of the values of buying a business is we already had all these relationships set up with a lot of the ITOs or inbound organizations. And so one of the scarier things was that one of them was giving us about sort of 50% of our business almost in some years. And so that terrified me because all your eggs in one basket can sort of, go belly up sometimes. So I definitely made a big effort to spend the money to go to the trade shows. So ATE, or Australian Tourism Exchange in Australia, is the biggest one we have here. And so my main goal there was to meet more of these ITOs and get them to know who I am, and then get into their systems. And then once that happened over the years, then I've started to be able to meet the agents that use those ITOs, and it just makes business so much easier when they know that you're already with ITO A or ITO B, and they're like, sweet, they've already got your details, no worries, product sounds great, I already know who I'm going to sell this to. So I guess you've got to really understand the structure of who you should be speaking to, because it's sort of pointless in a way to be talking to some of the agents if they only use one of the ITOs, if that ITO doesn't have your product at all.
Our travel world is full of acronyms and stuff that is different from region to region. So for the operators, just tell us what an ITO is.
So I do you call them DMCs? Is that a DMC over? And yeah, they are. Yeah. So it's an inbound. Basically, it's an agent in Australia that deals with international agents, and it's sort of their point to contact. I guess at the top of the agent list, and then it can kind of filter down through the wholesaler and the retail shop.
For the listeners in Europe and US, that would basically be a DMC. The DMC is the inbound meeting, and then you're a supplier to the DMC.
So that's been some of the most valuable relationships that we've had, and now with all the other trade shows that I go to, it's just sort of maintaining that connection. I was just over in the US for Marketplace on the West Coast there, and that was, fantastic just to be overseas again, but also just to meet up with some of the agents that we hadn't heard from a while, and just sort of reconnect, and also find new agents as well. It's definitely well worth it. It is a big investment. It was terrifying the first year that I paid for ATE, the tourism exchange here. It was a lot of money and very daunting to spend it, but once you go and you realize the connections that you make just in those few days, you can instantly see that this is worth a lot more than the price you pay.
So this is quite interesting, because I've just, at early doors this morning, 6 o'clock, I was just finishing an article about trade shows, because I've just come back from World Trade Travel Market myself in London, and that's me done for trade shows in the year. And we've got lots of questions in the group about trade shows. So I wrote an article for this week's newsletter, which will be going out later today, on trade shows. And the biggest one is always the big question is, because they are expensive, with the all the time, the hotels, cost to get in, if stand up, they are expensive. And I always get asked the question, do you get payback? The answer is always it depends.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to put the work in, and you have to do the planning, and you have to do the meeting, and you have to do the follow-up. But in my experience, if you do all that, in the B2B world, I don't think there's a better way of getting customers in the B2B world. It's different for B2C, but in the B2B world, and when people look at the cost, I'll always say to them, how long are you going to be in business for? If you sign up an agent at a trade show, that agent could be with you 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I recently sold a business that went agents who'd been with me for 20 years. The new owner's got 20-year relationships that have been sent to business for 20 years, and I got them in 2002 or 2003, whatever it was. So you have to look at the value of these things over a protracted period of time, rather than a return on investment on people who probably doesn't pay back on you.
It is hard to see that far. I mean, at the time that I booked my first trade show, I was wasn't really even giving myself an official wage, and so I was just kind of trying to like push forward. So it is, it is daunting, but once you truly understand, I think it's good just to talk to other people, especially small businesses that go to these trade shows. It's really good to have a chat and just ask them sort of what do you really get out of it? Do you think, and just have a chat. Just, do you think this product's for that market, or I think it's definitely worth it, especially if you've got a product that you.
I also think it's worth starting small, having local ones, and then regional ones. Don't just jump on a plane, spend thousands of dollars, and fly to the US, fly to Europe. Do all the small local ones where there's operators coming to them from other countries.
Absolutely. So, I mean, this year, that was my first ever international trade show this year. And so part of it was a really good excuse to get overseas, but also because I really wanted to reconnect with that American market again. But there's no way I would have considered that earlier on. Start small. I mean, realistically, you can still just contact these DMCs or ITOs without going to the trade show. And just say, hey, try and arrange a meeting with the product specialist and say, hey, this is who I am. This is what we do. I really think it'd be a great product for this region. And do you have time in your calendar of the next month that I could maybe come and chat to your agents and just give a bit of a, 10-minute spiel, 5-minute spiel on what I do. And then, that's a much cheaper way to do it than the trade show, but.
No, for sure, but it's also a combination. You open up the relationships digitally, which the last couple of all had no choice but to open up relationships digitally, and then you cement relationships when you get that opportunity to see people face to face, because you're both in the same place at the same time. That's when that relationship is cemented. And from my experience, even if there was business going beforehand, if you cement it in person and deepen that relationship, then better business follows.
Face to face. It's become basically, in a way, you become business friends in a way, and then you definitely form that relationship a bit better. So it's definitely a great channel. So a lot of I definitely tried my hardest to disperse the business over more areas, and then definitely looked into more of the OTAs, which people sort of tend to love or hate. Either across the board or just depending on the company, and they've been quite good as well. They sort of have their own challenges, especially if they don't directly link to booking systems how you want. But I don't think any one OTA works perfectly with all the booking systems.
There is no such thing as perfect in this industry. Every operator is different. The sort of lessons that I'm hearing from Jason here for the community here is, took over a business where it was unbalanced because too much business was coming from one channel. And I see time and time again with community businesses, we have to focus on distribution to get an even balance across businesses. There is no perfect mix because every operator is different. A big mix makes a more secure and a more stable business. If no one is more than a few percent of your business, or 5-10% maximum of your business, well, then you've got a business that is really resilient. Because if people go out of business and drop out, it's much easier to replace 5-10% than it is to replace 30% or 50%. So this is about security of lifelong value in your business. Jason, at some point, may you come to sell his business. You may sell your business in the future. And if you're looking to sell a business that has multiple channels in it without overexposure, that business is more valuable than a business that's only got 2 or 3 channels and overexposed to different channels. Some people pay more for a more secure business.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it's definitely, especially now, everything's starting to turn back on again. I think we've never seen so many emails from so many different sources, which has been kind of good. So
let's talk about that. And you're looking forward to 2023. Everything seems to be turning back on for Australia, and I would say Australia certainly lagged the USA, lagged Europe from coming out of COVID chaos for a whole host of.
Oh yeah, we did lock our borders pretty hard.
Yeah, so yous are really lagging a bit and maybe going to experience 2023. We all experienced a bit of last year and this year. But there's also some headwinds in the economies of the world, particularly in Europe. I would say USA less so. Europe is a bit of a basket case at the moment. UK is complete basket case economically at the moment. And America, I would say, is a bit less. Asia is still not fully come out of COVID. So there's economic headwinds everywhere that are going to impact travel. They haven't impacted travel in 2022, but they are going to impact it. Cannot be immune to economic headwinds. People can't keep their house, feed their families. They're not jumping on to go on holiday. That's just a logical fact. But I've just got back from trade shows. Everybody's happy. Everybody's seeing outrageous levels of business. Everybody's saying inquiries for 2023 are through the roof. So I'm slightly confused that I'm looking at the economy, which is crashing, and in recession, and yet 2023 looks like it could be really good. So I'm slightly confused.
Yeah, I fully agree. Like, it's, inflation in Australia, we're not immune to that at all. It's just on the news every single day, but travel's still going strong. Definitely, I've seen, because we do a lot of high-end tours as well, so a lot of custom design private touring, and so that's I think certain markets, especially the ones that had the money to begin with, are definitely not shying away to big ticket holidays. So one thing I've really started to look at is actually designing tours that I could never afford myself, but that are just exceptional, once in a lifetime experiences that where budget isn't an issue. And just talking to agents in those sort of markets, when they ask about the price, they're like, oh yeah, no dramas, all good. So it's definitely opened my eyes to a potential, like a market that we're already in, but definitely shows that I could really push it to take advantage or make the most of those people coming over that just want something that's unique. They don't really care about the price as much. They just want
So
something that can't be bought modeling.
I'll explore that a little bit more. For the reason we come across this all the time in the community. Operators are building tours and building experiences that they like and they're passionate about. And I get that. The vast majority are building what they like, what they're passionate about. But there is the assumption and the mistake that they price them at the level they can pay. And you are not your customer. The market is your customer, market segment you've gone. And it's psychological. The operators have to get over that psychological barrier. There is markets out there that pay 4 to 5 to 10 times more than you would pay for an experience.
Oh, yeah.
It's the value the value people place on experiences is different depending on who the people are. Therefore, the one price for all scenario, it works if you do enough volume, but you're leaving so much profit on the table by pricing the one price to the whole market when the market is made up hugely different. People who are willing to pay different rates for different experiences. And why this is really important going forward is operators are obsessed with getting more customers. I get it. I've been an operator for 12 years. I get it. But you can be a really, really profitable business and growing profitable business without growing your customer base.
Yeah.
By growing your experience range, the type of experiences, and critically the price and profit point of the experiences. And maybe as we go into a crazy world where certain destinations are certainly struggling with over tourism and all sorts of environmental challenges, growth of numbers may not just be the only way forward. It could be growth of the experiences and growth of the price.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it has taken me a little while to get over, like, even the shock in my own voice saying how much some of these like 1-day tours would be, because it involves like a half an hour chopper flight into the middle of nowhere, and then like exclusive everything. And it is actually, it's really, I mean, 6+ years on, it's only really been the later half of this year that I've really gotten comfortable with the fact that the price isn't really they don't really care about the price. They want to make sure that it is an amazing product that you're creating. And we still sell like very cheap small group tours to everyday Australians or internationals coming over, but at the same time we can still have these sort of high ticket items that are not designed for every single day sale, but they're there for those clients, especially the higher end markets that just want it. And so yeah, it's definitely a new avenue that I'm trying to lean into a bit more.
We're in the experience economy, and people value experiences now more than they value things on the whole. And they're willing to pay well for experiences.
Absolutely.
We as operators cannot put our judgment on the customer what they value the time at. Everyone values time at a different rate. Their job is to create stunning experiences and price them really, really well for different markets, accepting that people pay all different things. Have you ever thought about, you keep mentioning half day and full day, have you ever thought of going in back into multi-day? And when I say multi-day, everybody thinks, we're back into 7, 10, 15, 3-week tours. Multi-day to me can be 2 days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, when I first came here and bought this business, because I'd come from a multi-day tour guide perspective, my whole goal was like, let's start a multi-day tour. No one's doing multi-day tours not many they're doing from Port Douglas. And I think I just slowly accepted that where we are is like we've got the Daintree rainforest and the Great Barrier Reef next to us, but most stuff we can do within a day. Anyone self-driving, I'd say spend like two plus days up north in the Daintree. But on a tour, I think a lot of people had less time. The destination was sort of sold as like 1 day for the rainforest, 1 day for the reef, and then you continue on to your next area. But I really did look into it, and I think I've just accepted that. Like, I've got a good mate that started a business up here, and he runs multi-day tours, and he's sort of a bird expert, does fantastic like 5-day tours, and he's doing really, really well. So there's definitely a market here for it. I think I've just found that I'm very comfortable with these sort of half-day, 1-day tours for where we're trying to go and what we're trying to do within our area. I think I definitely wanted to when I first came, though.
Yeah, the reason I bring it up is, again, profitability, more profit per customer without doing more customers. There's also data coming out, and I've always found this, I've found this for 20 years, that although people search for destination first and then accommodation, then experiences, I've always captured markets for the people who have searched for experiences first. And if you capture an inquiry for experiences first, you can then sell all sorts of services on the back of it, be it transport, be it accommodation, be it restaurants, food, which builds out your package in multi-days. That was always a minority in the market, but we're getting data coming out now that's showing search list for experience first before the logistical stuff is increasing and increasing. Where I think it's coming from, we're in this experience world now where everybody's looking for experience and integration rather than things, and more people are treating hotels as a commodity in the head because they want to spend the money on the experiences. The operator, this is growth. This is a huge opportunity. If you've got a market that's suddenly searching for experiences prior to doing the logistics of bed, food, transport. To me, that's just like a huge opportunity for operators to work with partners, package out a better experience for the customer, and make more margin for stuff that you don't actually deliver. You're just booking it for them.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think where we are, sometimes the hotel is actually the experience as well. Like we have these incredible hotels in the rainforest, and so sometimes they want to get back early just so they can spend more time at the hotel. So I think we're in a bit of a unique spot where we are because we're right in the spot where people are exploring. But honestly, there's so much you could do up here. You could spend days and days and days, and so really there's nothing stopping anyone. I'm definitely not going to put my hand up. I've got my hands full, but there's definitely plenty of room for multi-day tours up here. I'd be all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you say you've got your hands full, how many people are in the business with you? How many employees?
We've got about
Have you got a business
we've got
partner?
about 18 employees now. It's sort of exploded over the last year. We sort of, as I discovered, being overseas, everyone has a staff shortage at the moment, and we had that for a long time, and we were just pushing, hiring, and then all of a sudden, I think we ended up with so many staff. But I think we were limiting tours because of staff numbers. We definitely were. We've got like 4 of us in the office, not all at the same time, sort of dispersed over the week. And then I got 2 trainee tour guides that we get from there's an Indigenous training facility just near us. So we've got 2 Indigenous trainee tour guides, which have been fantastic. And then the rest are a mixture of locals, a couple of backpackers, and just people that have moved up interstate to try something different. So it's definitely grown quickly.
Are you sole owner, or you have a business partner, or are you 100% owner?
So my parents, where the 3 of us are the owners of the business, because I definitely on a tour guide salary didn't really quite have the funds back in 2016 to buy a tour business. So I definitely had to put a pretty good argument to my parents with a big business plan and do all of the graphs and the pitch and everything. And so we have but I'm the one making most of the decisions and then parents backing up.
Yeah, that's a brave decision to go into business with your parents. I'm pretty sure.
I didn't realize that. Love my parents, but it's a bit strange being your mum's boss.
It's a bit like going into business with your wife, and I know many of our operators are in business with their partners, but that certainly wouldn't work for me.
Yeah.
Looking forward to 2023, you've already mentioned the inquiries are coming in. What do you think your main challenges for 2023?
I'm really curious to see what happens with Australia's, especially, the world's view on travel as a luxury if the economies are going to continue going the direction that the media keeps telling us. I think that's probably my biggest concern. And then staffing, like what's happening with we're in a small town, so housing shortages and trying to get staff to live in them. They're definitely some of the bigger challenges we face. We're so lucky. We basically use a natural environment for the whole tour, so there's not too much that can go wrong there. Besides the river stopped flowing, but that's never happened, which is good because it's where our drinking water comes from. I'd say definitely just people's view on travel. I think everyone's very excited still that the world's opening back up again. And that's why we're seeing such booms everywhere. It'll be interesting to see next year. I'm definitely not seeing anything slowing down, so I'm hoping that kind of goes against what the media.
What's the Australian dollar doing versus the US dollar? Because the US dollar seems to be hugely strong against the euro and the pound.
Yeah, it was not a cheap trip for me in the US this year in August. Our dollar's pretty low to the US dollar, which is great for inbound. Really, like we want it. It's terrible for us going overseas, but it's fantastic for us to get international people coming here because we're not a cheap country. Australians get paid quite high wages. Things are more expensive in a dollar value in Australia, and so especially when our dollar's low to the US, it's fantastic. We get huge amounts of US business coming over, and it definitely helps to.
I do think that's going to be a big offset for Europe, UK, and Australia next year. That if the economy does go where we're all thinking it's going, there's still a big US market who have money in the bank who see Australia as value at the moment because it's virtually, well, certainly in the UK and Europe, it's 1 for 1, which in my lifetime it's never been. So the Americans coming over. So yeah, I do think that's going to be a big saviour for a lot of inbound operators going forward if they're targeting the right market.
Definitely. Plus, we're a very safe, reliable destination. So when there's turmoil in the world and a bit of unrest, I think it's a very easy default for people to come to Australia because it's just there's no concerns. Everything is going to run smoothly, and we're pretty far away from.
I think it's worth pointing out for our operators on that point because, again, I've just got back for travel shows. Everybody's smiling, everybody's happy, everybody's had huge amounts of business coming back to 2019 levels or above. But I think it's worth pointing out there's still lots of regions of the world who are still at 20%, 30% of 2019, and certain some areas of Asia. I was on a podcast yesterday with a lady from Georgia where their tourism has been decimated because they're so close to Ukraine, the situation in Ukraine. Right. So I do think it's worth pointing out that the bounce back of tourism has been fantastic and great, but that we have still lots of destinations in the world for various reasons.
Oh, it's so uneven. Yeah, honestly, I'm so grateful for how things are going right here. It's not the same all over Australia. It doesn't go past me how lucky our specific destination is just to have to be going so well, because I fully appreciate not everyone's in the same basket, and it's but I mean it's tourism is such a guaranteed thing to exist. Like, people aren't going to stop traveling. There's going to be dips and like peaks and troughs. So I guess the biggest thing is when it's low, just work on building those channels and getting ready for when it bounces back.
I think operators do need to realise growth is baked into travel because populations of the world keep growing. The middle class who have got more money keep growing at eye-watering amounts when you look at it on a global basis. Therefore, growth of tourism is a baked-in solution. It is going to happen. The challenge is, how do we manage that growth in a responsible way? Because the growth is coming anyway. That is just based on demographics and numbers. The growth for travel is coming anyway. It's all about how we manage the growth and deliver great experiences in a way it doesn't trash the world. So, Jason, we're going to wrap up now. I'm just going to give a couple of points that I've got in this discussion and re-emphasise for the listeners. The first one was buy rather than build, or buy then build, versus start from nothing. I think there's lessons there. I'm not saying there's a right or a wrong because it's different for everybody, but I do think people should really look into buying as well as starting businesses, because I think there's distinct advantages of buying. Other big lesson I think I've got from this for the community is you've got a business that had uneven distribution, and you've spent several years evening up that distribution, making the business stronger, making the business more resilient by evening up that distribution. B2B versus B2C, and it moves all the time. Every year it's a different ratio, but you see the value in having great B2B partners, both from these and local hotels, local partners in the DMC world, or ITOs, as you guys call them. So they're the sort of lessons I've got out of this conversation. Have you got anything you want to leave the community with? Anything you need help from the community? community? Any questions for the community?
I guess it's such a good community, the Tourpreneur community. I love the discussions. It's so valuable having so many different insights accessible to all of us. I guess people that aren't in a boom area, just stay resilient and positive. It will bounce back. And the biggest thing is nothing lasts forever. So if you're in this boom of domestic and you're just going, no, I don't need to work with these DMCs anymore, I'd reconsider that massively. They're definitely, you want to disperse your business across. Not one channel is going to be the whole source forever. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks very much, Jason. That's Jason Heffernan from Backcountry Bliss down in Australia. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Peter.